Live, where news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Good evening, I'm Maria Garcia. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Every week we try to bring you a more thorough discussion about the top story of the week. And this week, there's no doubt the El Paso City Manager's big raise dominated headlines. Specifically tonight, we're taking a closer look into the process that led to the raise. About 3 weeks ago, the City Council voted to increase City Manager Tommy Gonzalez's pay from roughly $250,000 to $300,000 a year. That was after a 5% increase the mayor had already approved for Gonzalez in June. The 5% increase was called for in his contract if Gonzalez scored well on evaluations and his scores were exceptional. That initial 5% raise took Gonzalez from making about $238,000 to $250,000 a year. Now this month, though, City Rep Larry Romero proposed giving Gonzalez a hefty $50,000 raise, saying the initial 5% wasn't enough, considering Gonzalez has saved the city $11 million, put $1 million back into the city's savings account, and saved enough to give all city employees a $500 or $1,000 payment this Christmas. But after council voted to increase his salary 3 weeks ago, the public, frankly, seemed outraged, saying the pay raise came too fast and was too steep. So this week, City Rep Claudia Ordaz, who initially voted for the raise 3 weeks ago, said she regretted the decision and brought up the issue again. Ordaz says she now realizes the process the City Council used to approve the big raise was flawed. Representative Ordaz will be joining us tonight, so will former Mayor John Cook to give us perspective on the process. You can email us your comments and questions now to ABC7Extra at KVIA.com. You can also reach us at 915-496-1775. On Twitter, use the hashtag ABC7Extra and tweet me at MariaGABC7. We do want to tell you, we asked the city reps with a different viewpoint from Ordaz to come in tonight. Reps Larry Romero and Emma Acosta did not respond to our inquiry. Peter Schwarzbein had told us he'd be out of town, and we were able to verify he was. And city reps Michael No and Courtney Nyland declined, saying it was not a good idea to come on because they said discussing this with Ordaz would hurt the city and make it look more dysfunctional. And No said Ordaz does not have the city's best interest at heart. We're going to give her the opportunity to respond to that in just a bit. Before our discussion, though, let's get a recap of what happened this week. Claudia Ordaz.
It was a mistake for which I solely take responsibility for.
City Rep Claudia Ordaz says she supports the city manager, but says the process to approve his raise earlier this month was hastily sprung on the rest of council by City Rep Larry Romero.
The process and the manner in which it was done raised legitimate frustrations by the public.
Do you realize how this hurts El Paso? You guys make a decision, and 2 weeks later you're coming back and bringing it up again? We're losing credibility, folks.
Romero says Gonzalez has exceeded expectations by saving the city $11 million, solving big problems and getting praise for the city from credit agencies. And after learning the mayor had only increased Gonzalez's salary by 5%, Romero said that wasn't enough.
Understand my reason for doing this was to keep a good man here.
A man who apparently could break his contract with the city if approached with a more attractive offer.
Honestly, I wouldn't blame Tommy Gonzalez if he left this city, and it'd be our fault. Shame on us.
Don't embarrass the city, don't embarrass yourself, and certainly don't embarrass a great city manager.
This is a dysfunctional city council issue. You all created this mess. This is a mess of your creation.
Ordaz said Human Resources wasn't there to answer questions when the council approved the raise the first time, and there was no official market-based salary review. Now, the city did not do a comprehensive salary review, but city reps Larry Romero and Emma Acosta presented research that showed Gonzalez was underpaid compared to other city managers. Ordaz voted to repeal the raise, but she only had the support of Lily Limon and Carl Robinson. City reps Emma Acosta, Courtney Nyland, Michael No, Larry Romero, and Peter Schwarzbein voted to keep the raise in place. Joining us now, City Rep Claudia Ordaz and former Mayor John Cook. Thank you so much for coming in.
It's my pleasure, Maria.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Representative Ordaz. Okay, so I want to start with what the consensus is among some of your colleagues, and we've talked about this before, Representative Ordaz, when you've been here before, and it seems like your decision to bring this up again this week solidified in their mind that you're a political opportunist, that you're using this to grandstand, that you don't have the city's interest at heart, and that this makes the city look dysfunctional. What do you say to that?
You know, as a city representative, it's my job to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable, making sure that we're holding the organization accountable. If there are discrepancies or inefficiencies that I see, it's my job to raise questions about it. I mean, I was here just a couple of weeks ago talking about the MPO funding and how we missed millions of dollars in transportation funding for the district. And so to raise questions about that process, about the inefficiencies that were happening, to say that I don't have the best interest is it couldn't be further from the truth. My job is not to make sure that the city is looking good. My job is to make sure that the city is doing a good job.
Now, they say that the reason they say that this makes the city more look dysfunctional and that it hurts the city is because they say that there are companies looking to come to El Paso, and when they see the city is considering rescinding a raise to a city manager, then that sends a message to the industry, to private companies, that the city council can't keep its word, and that the city council, the El Paso City Council, is not good for business.
You know, I find that really hard to believe that a company would not come because of one city council representative's opinion. I mean, I would really like to hear that from the company themselves. You know, when I did hear that, it kind of took me back, because I don't think that one city council representative is really going to change the mind of a company who's going to bring such number of jobs to this community. I don't think that's the case. That the company interest shouldn't be in what's happening at city council or what one city representative's opinion is. Their interests are other things. So I really find that hard to believe.
We're going to go through all of the concerns you brought up about the process one by one. But first, Mayor Cook, welcome. It feels like old times to have you here.
Yeah, it's nice to be back again, back in the saddle again.
So, Mayor Cook, I want to ask you, you presided over a very passionate administration. I mean, you had people on the council who really pushed the envelope and brought up issues that were always controversial. You had a city manager that arguably was incredibly controversial, but you built some consensus. What were your thoughts when you saw this process unfold in the media?
Well, you know, my motto has always been, blessed are the peacemakers. When I was the mayor, I tried to be a peacemaker. When I was a city representative, I did the same thing. But my view is, I think, a little different than most people's. For one thing, once I left the office of the mayor, I disengaged myself from local politics, which I thought was only the right thing to do. I didn't want to become an ankle biter and to sit back and become critical of Mayor Leeser's administration. I wanted to give them a chance to succeed, and I prayed that they would succeed. And but I can tell you that I've looked at other governments around the state. For example, Austin, who just went to single-member districts. And they're having a lot of problems because they had never been single-member districts before. And the reason for that is because if you're electing people from the broad base and all the voters get to vote on who's going to be there, you're probably going to have people who are more like-minded than if you have single-member districts where the people in a certain district are going to vote one way, see different needs in the community from another district which might be more conservative or more liberal, whatever the case may be. So I think that that's probably why there is some controversy on important issues on the council. I also don't think that a company would decide because a council member would disagree and ask to have something revisited, would change their mind about locating to El Paso. But I personally, I wouldn't have bought the issue back. You already made your decision, you did it for the reasons you did it, and then you should move on to the next issue. And it's real important to understand that council members are never going to always agree with each other. There's always going to be disagreement. But I think what their constituents expect from them is to disagree agreeably, not to get personal in your attacks.
Well, I remember, there were times, where we had city council members before in past administrations come on this program and debate vigorously, and deliberation is important. A difference of opinion is important. And they would do that, and then they would shake hands and smile when the show was over and see each other on Monday or Tuesday at City Hall and move on. But I think in this case, we have a city council that some members don't even talk to each other, frankly. So I want to go through the process. Let's get to that. Representative Ordaz, first you said, I want to go through the 4 things you said that the process was flawed, and you said that there was no advance notice given to council that Gonzalez's salary or a raise would be discussed, and that the language on the agenda item was ambiguous. So the question is, so if that's the case, isn't it your responsibility to pick up the phone and say, hey, what's this agenda item about? Isn't it your responsibility to prepare yourself for the city council meeting and to find out what you're going to be discussing and do your due diligence on it?
Absolutely. And with every agenda item, we made it a priority. We actually passed some rules not too long ago that with every agenda item, there needs to be a backup. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case here. And the way that it was vaguely worded, I wasn't entirely sure what we were going to be discussing. I certainly didn't think it was a salary increase, considering that the evaluation had happened back in June. But it is our responsibility as city council representatives, and we made that commitment not too long ago, that every agenda item that we post on the agenda needs to come with a backup, just to make sure that there's transparency, to make sure that other city council members can do their own research. And maybe there were conversations that happened before. Some city council reps did say at the meeting on Tuesday that they knew that they were going to be talking about a salary increase. I'm not privy to that information because I never got that from any of the city council representatives. So the backup should have been included, and it wasn't. And that's part of the process that I'm talking about, that process.
So even, okay, the backup wasn't included, that is true. The agenda item didn't mention that it was going to be discussing compensation. We checked, though, in past administrations, for example, in 2008, when the council approved a raise for Joyce Wilson, an agenda item read discussion action relative to city manager's annual performance review. It also didn't mention compensation, and a lot of the times when you approved that 5%, in some cases 6% pay raises for Joyce Wilson, albeit they were significantly smaller than the 20% council approved in this case, most of the time it didn't even go before council because it was called for in the contract. Do you remember that, Mayor?
Right, and I'm not sure what the current contract is, but in Joyce's contract, it actually had performance reviews and a 5% increase in pay, as I recall, which was she would qualify for it if she had an exceptional rating. So it was a given that if you gave her an exceptional rating, she was going to get that salary increase.
And that's the case for Mr. Gonzalez's contract. From
well, what's in the contract is the same thing that was in Joyce Wilson's contract. It was an evaluation that's done by the mayor, distributes the evaluations. There's a rating, and then council has to approve that. As Mayor Cook just mentioned, they spoke about it in executive session, and then they spoke about the appraisal afterwards in open forum. That's something that never happened with this council and this administration. The evaluation was done back in June, and that was the 5% that calls for in his contract. So this bonus was something, I'm not sure where it came from. It was a bonus that came really out of nowhere, because in his contract it calls for the 5%, and that's something that happened back in June.
Right. So the city manager got a 4.6 score out of a 5. So I mean, he got really high scores from the city reps. And from what I understand, according to the city, is that the contract calls that if he gets exceptional scores, then that 5% should be given according to the contract. And according to the city, the language on the contract doesn't stipulate that it has to go before council in an official meeting.
Okay. Well, you saw the issue here. I mean, the 5% is one thing, but when we're talking about a $60,000 increase that some council members didn't even know, there was a lot of we were only given the information that we were given in executive session, and it differed from the information that was given to the public. And that's the information that we based our decisions on. And so when we talk about, you know, letting an issue go, just moving past it on a vote that you took, but if you know that there was a process that was flawed, learning all of these facts after the fact that it happened, it's our responsibility to make sure that we bring it back and to have that conversation. I certainly owed my constituents that much. The public was upset. They had every right to be, because they were never given any sort of public notice. I had a community meeting the day after, and they asked me some questions that I couldn't even answer. They said, "Why didn't you tell us this? Why wasn't the community informed about this?" And I was like, you know, you're right. I don't know, but that's something I'm going to look into. Once I started looking into it, I felt that it was our obligation, that we need to make sure to bring these issues forward, talk about the discrepancies, the flawed process, and make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Mayor, how do you strike the balance between informing the public on tax dollars and personnel issues, which by law require some privacy?
Well, there's very few issues that come before council that you can keep secret. Personnel issues are one of those. We don't share performance appraisals publicly. I mean, they're not open. They're not subject to open records. So there has to be a balance there, and it's walking a tightrope to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. I mean, it becomes obvious if the council gave a bad appraisal, which during my administration, Joyce had one that was not a really good appraisal, and we had to come up with a performance improvement plan, which she did come up with the performance improvement plan, and she met all of those things that we asked her to do in the plan. Everything she said she was going to do, she did. But that doesn't become something for the public to talk about. Her bosses get to talk about it, and the city manager works for the mayor and council. He doesn't work for any one individual person.
And the mayor and council work for the people.
Right, and the mayor and council are a body. So whatever the majority of the body wants is what you have to go along with. And people aren't always going to get their way. There's always going to be somebody who might be dissatisfied with the way it turns out. Then what the elected officials need to do is answer to their constituents and say, I voted my conscience on the issue. I did my due diligence. I studied the material that was available to me, and that's why I made the decision that I made. It's not always going to be popular with them.
Okay, all right. We have to take a break. We have a lot of tweets. We're going to get to them as soon as we come back. We're also going to get to the issue you brought up about HR, Human Resources, and no one from the City Attorney's Office, you say, being present during the discussion. Stay with us. You're watching ABC-7 Extra. We're talking about the process that led to the city manager race. You can call us 496-1775, tweet me at MariaG ABC7, or email us at ABC7Extra@KVIA.com. We'll be right back with a lot of tweets. Welcome back. Let's get to your tweets now. John Riley tweeting at us, this city council bickers like little kids, which is embarrassing. That's why we can't keep good people. And then also Marine, Representative Ordaz voted against city employees' bonuses, and she had no regrets. City manager plans a cost of living increase next year. She's taking credit for his effort. Why? You want to respond to that?
No, that's not the case at all. The City Council just passed a a 3-penny tax increase. That's going to add about $40 to the average home. I voted against that. 1.8 of that was to meet our financial obligations. You saw the fire referendum, the quality of life bonds. We recently increased the homestead exemption for seniors, and the 1.2 that was going to be given as a one-time lump sum to employees. And I don't think that's a way to address the problem of pay increases. City employees haven't received a pay increase since 2012. So to give them a one-time lump sum, I don't think is a solution to the problem. And so that's why I voted against it. People are seeing tax increases over tax increases over tax increases. So to find a way to minimize that, that's what I was in favor for.
Chris, voting, you were in executive session for 2 hours and you didn't ask questions or make statements. Why?
There were a lot of questions during executive session, and there was a lot of confusion as far as what happened with the 5%, whether the 5% was included, whether it wasn't. There was facts given about, or statements made about how he ranks compared to other cities. I don't know how much I can go into this, but that information differed from what was given to the public. And so we were given the impression that that the 5% had already been included, had not been included. There was just a lot of confusion that came from that meeting. And that's probably why it was a 2-hour discussion.
Now you say the city attorney, no one from the city attorney's office was present. We did see the city attorney being summoned in to executive session.
Yes.
During executive session. Other city reps say you're not being truthful about that. They say that the city attorney did make herself available for questions.
She came in after the fact, after that 2-hour discussion when we discussed the contract. We discussed the contract. We even brought the city manager in, and then we brought the city manager. And then we brought the city attorney in. That was after a consensus was found. There was some discussion about maybe finding a happy median, maybe not going to that extent. There were a lot of options on the table, but the majority of the consensus wanted to go ahead and move forward with the salary. And then at that point, that's when the city attorney came in to help with the language.
Now, you say HR wasn't there. Now, the thing is, you're a city rep. You're in this executive session for 2 hours. You're deciding something very important. You have the power to say, hey, can we get someone from HR in here? Let's get the city attorney in here.
And you're absolutely right. This is the first time that we've made a decision like this. Like I said, I didn't have an opportunity to do the homework. I didn't know that we were going to be talking about a $60,000 increase. I based my decisions on what was available to me at that time. And then I learned after the fact that the information that was given to me was completely different from the information that was given to the public and to the media. So there was a lot of confusion, so that's why I felt like the issue needed to be revisited.
Joe tweeting, Mr. Gonzalez appears to be doing a good job since taking over the city manager's office, cannot go back and change things now. And then also, let's see, we already read that one. Let's see, El Jefe tweeting, really, Ordaz is the only one with the cajones to stick up for the people. El Paso Polytext tweeting, why aren't the city reps willing to come on to explain this raise? Ordaz is the only one willing to show up. Something is wrong. And El Jefe saying, simply calling other cities is not an acceptable research method. He's referring to the research that Representative Larry Romero and Emma Acosta presented. I want to talk about that now. One of your other points, you said one of the other concerns you brought up with the process was that there wasn't an official market-based salary analysis with a lot more information. City Reps Emma Acosta, Larry Romero did provide research they said that they made after calling cities and checking in to see how much their city managers got paid. The city attorney said that the research that Representative Acosta and Representative Romero was acceptable if that was all the city council needed.
And that's something I disagree with. My motion on Tuesday was twofold, and it's important that in the motion was one, to rescind the salary increase and bring it back once a thorough market-based analysis is conducted. And that should include full compensation, not just base salary. We're talking about full compensation. We're talking about the median household income, the number of employees. The list goes on about what a full market-based analysis should consist of, especially if we're making such a major vote on such a large increase. I don't agree that just calling other cities would provide that type of information. So that's why my motion was twofold. And I feel like that was the most important aspect of it, is to bring that back. And then at that point, it would have been a transparent process. At that point, the market-based analysis would have been made public, and we really would have seen it. But what's
before
also,
the fact instead of after the fact.
Exactly. And then the issue also is when we're talking about full compensation, you know, our city manager currently gets compensation for outside consulting. That's something that was prohibited in the former city manager's contract. So we're not seeing the full compensation. We were only seeing the base salary. So if we could have just gone all the facts on the table, we would have been able to make a better decision.
Mayor, how often did you all do a market-based salary analysis to determine Ms. Wilson's pay or her raises?
I don't know that we did, that we hired a consultant to go out and do a market-based analysis. We would usually just rely on whatever human resources came up with, and typically they would contact different cities that we thought were in our market that that had similar populations to us. I know it was very similar to the same market-based analysis we looked at for police and fire salaries, for example. We compared those same cities to what it was that they were doing. And the reason for it is that you don't want people coming in and trying to recruit someone that you think is doing a good job because they can pay them more money than you're paying them. But you know, Ms. Ordaz is correct that if you do have, if you do want to take in some of those other variables, if you want to do a complete market-based analysis, look at median incomes for households that are in your community, and then compare it. The danger of that, though, is you may end up losing a very good person because you came in with a lower number.
City Rep Courtney Nyland said in the City Council meeting on Tuesday that Affion, the company, the firm that the city hired to look for a city manager, had told the City Council in executive session, you should be paying $300,000. That is the competitive salary for a city manager.
And that information was not given to me. I wasn't in those discussions when they first hired the city manager, and I did ask Courtney at that point, or Representative Nyland at that point, what study was that? And they're like, oh, well, you didn't see it, you weren't here. And so that information would have been helpful if I was on the backup, but it wasn't on the backup.
All right, Jaime tweeting, if there was genuinely a job loss that can be attributed to the issue, then council has an obligation to bring it forward. El Jefe tweeting, Representative Ordaz, so the moral of the story is that nobody can ever change their mind. In this case, she responds to her people. El Paso Polytech says, no says going on ABC-7 Extra would make the city look bad, but makes a charge about losing jobs. Give me a break. Leo says, you worked for the PSB and the CEO earns $285,000 plus. Was the process vetted with the public? You were the PIO. Why didn't you? So I guess he's comparing the PSB, El Paso Water Utilities CEO salary compared to El Paso City Manager's salary. Maureen says, executive session items do not have backup because they are sensitive issues. What do you respond to that?
I mean, if we were going to be talking about a large salary increase, just give us some information, just an FYI, so that we can make the best decision that we can. An increase that large, I think, deserves some attention, and I don't think it's right that some city council members are privy to that information and some people aren't. So that's what I have to say to that. I think that even if I were to bring up a topic in executive session, I would make sure that my colleagues at least know what I'm going to be discussing, and at least give them and their staff the information.
When it comes to backup material in an executive session meeting, Typically, it's handed out during the executive session for everybody to look at. Staff, if you ask staff to go over that for you and to help you understand how they constructed it. And then it's all turned back in at the end of the meeting. You don't keep anything that was given to you by staff after the executive session meeting.
In this case, that wasn't done?
In this case, what was done was the research that Mr. Romero had done, and he passed that information out.
Okay, all right. We have to take a break. We'll be right back with some phone calls from viewers and some tweets. Stay with us. Back to ABC-7 Extra. Let's get to more of your tweets. We have a lot of them. We're going to try our best to get through the large majority of them. El Paso Chicano Power tweeting, market rate analysis includes adjusting for the cost of living, not just Googling other cities' salaries. Hashtag basic economic fail. Jaime tweeting, ironically, council thinks public discussion about an important issue like this makes the city look bad. Transparency, anyone? El Jefe tweeting, Representative Ordaz is the only one looking out for the community. She does her job much like Gonzalez, yet she's the one on trial. Marine tweeting, let's see. I had it here. If you didn't know where the information came from, Representative Ordaz, why did you stay silent and vote for it after 2 hours in executive session? It doesn't make sense.
And I'll be happy to respond to that. And you know, I was one of the 6 members who voted in favor of the raise, and it was based on the information that was given to us in executive session. And you know, as a city representative, just like my colleagues, we really try to make the best decisions that's best in the best interest of of the city and of our constituents. But sometimes we're not always right, and in this case, I wasn't right, and so I solely take responsibility in that mistake.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Barbara from the Northeast calling. Hi, Barbara. What's your comment or your question?
Okay, City Manager Gonzalez saved the city $11 million. Why do you want to rescind his raise? It's not fair and it's not right.
Do you want to respond to that?
Sure. Again, this was about the process and the way in which it was conducted. After the vote, I thought a lot about the vote. I heard from a lot of my constituents who were rightly upset, not necessarily about the amount, but just of how sudden the vote took place, that they never got an opportunity to even know that this was coming forward. And so they had every right to feel that way, and I couldn't have agreed with them more about the process. So my motion on Tuesday was really to bring it back after that market-based analysis was fully complete, and we get that information that's needed, and we can make decisions based off that, and it would have been transparent at that point.
Okay, we are going a little bit over than our allotted time because we have so many phone calls and so many tweets. We've never had so many tweets. Enrique from the Lower Valley calling. Enrique, what's your comment or your question?
Council's lost its credibility by giving Mr. Gonzalez a raise just to keep him. We can't keep students, teachers, doctors, nurses, and so many others, for El Paso cheap wages simply forces them to leaving. Thank you.
So Enrique is saying council lost its credibility by offering such a big raise.
And you know, and I like to speak to that a little bit. And you know, there's a lot of people that I spoke with, a lot of people in this community who don't even make $60,000 a year as a family. I mean, the average household income, and that's all of the incomes combined in one household, averages $40,000 in this community. And so they have every right to be
for the people who were putting together the items, the committee for the charter election, it's no secret that council removed the item to pay city reps more because of the backlash they received from giving the city manager such a big raise. City reps right now make $29,000 a year. Right. I have a baby. I know that if I made $29,000 and if I was by myself, I don't know how I would feed my child. You know, I mean, truly, like
Tell me about it. I'm living on Social Security, so.
Yeah, I mean, so really, like, It's for a lot of people, it's just unfortunate that such an important issue that would have broadened the pool of qualified, passionate people who want to serve the public, but now can't because they can't afford to live on 29K if they have a family.
They could have still put it forward, and council could have voted in order to do that. And they could have even said, you know, not for this administration, but for the next one. If people don't like it, don't vote me back in.
Yeah.
I think we've done that before under my administration when we voted in a raise.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to Victor in the Upper Valley. Victor, what's your comment or your question?
Mr. Ordaz, you mentioned that there were so many flaws and questions unanswered, but yet you cast a vote in favor of. Why?
You know, as I mentioned, you know, the information that was given to us in executive session, that's how I based my decision. It wasn't until after the fact that I learned that a lot of the information that we received in executive session differed from the information that was given to the public and was given to the media. Hearing a lot from my constituents, I wanted them to feel as though they really had a voice, and that I was willing to bring the item back, talk about the process, the flawed process that we can improve moving forward. You know, the number one issue that I face in this position is just the lack of trust that the public has for government, because they feel they don't have a voice.
There's definitely a sense of cynicism.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I don't want them to feel as though, you know what, we're sticking to our guns, I'm going to stick to this, and I'm just going to move forward. I want them to feel as though I am listening and I am taking their concerns to heart. And even though we don't agree on everything, they had a valid point on this subject. And it was not popular to bring it back, but I felt the need to make it right and bring it back.
Leo tweeting, kudos to Mayor Cook for clearing up the process question. Representative Ordaz needs to ask more questions in executive session. El Jefe tweeting, can you imagine what this country would look like if every decision made was final and should never be revisited? Alex tweeting, city manager gets $60,000 raise, employees get one-time $500 payment. This creates morale issues. It's $500 for someone who's been there less than a year, $1,000 for over a year. And then also Proud El Pasoans tweeting, when is the raise freeze? When will the raise freeze end for non-uniform city employees? City employees haven't gotten a raise in over 8 years. You talked about that earlier. And then also Chris tweeting, Representative Ordaz is doing a great job. This salary increase is way more than what a normal El Paso family makes, a little much. And El Jefe tweeting, for goodness sake, I can't believe anything less than a thorough evaluation passes for research. Okay, all right, we have a lot of tweets. We're going to try to post them on our website. Thank you so much for joining us. We're out of time. We've been out of time for quite some time, but I really wanted, we got a lot of phone calls and a lot of tweets, and I wanted to get to a lot of them. Thank you, Representative Ordaz. You're always incredibly accessible, and somebody tweeted that you were on trial here. You were not on trial, and I appreciate you coming in. I know you had plans this week. It was your 4-year anniversary,
yes.
And you were going to go out of town, but you canceled those plans to be here because you thought your constituents deserved it. So thank you so much for being here.
Maria,
I appreciate it. And Mayor Cook, it's like
Thanks,
old
Maria.
times. Oh
Okay.
my gosh, thank you.
Invite me anytime.
Thank you. I'm going to take you up on that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us here on ABC 7 Extra. We hope you found this informative and helpful, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.